Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to the last candidate intro session for the Open Source Committee's pre-vote here. That's happening between August and September of 2024. We got, I believe it, 3 of our candidates that have been able to show up this morning. So we have Moritz, Faizan, and Robin. So we'll give each of them a chance to introduce themselves, and then, of course, it is up to the community, or we will also structure some questions their way. So in no particular order, anyone want to take the start here?
Fine with me if no one else wants.
Go ahead, sir.
All right. I'm Moritz. I work at IOG. I primarily focus on developer experience and platform engineering, and I have, I guess, about a decade experience in working open source projects, mostly on compiler work and similar stuff. And I've been working with Cardano for the last roughly 6 years. So yeah, that's basically me. Done work on the engineering side, on the architecture side, on a bit on mentoring side, bringing people into projects, helping them get up to speed, and only a tiny bit on the more documentation side. So that's not really my strong suit. All right, that's basically all I had to say for now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Moritz.
If I may, I can continue.
Go ahead.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Robin. And what should I say? I'm a software engineer for, I think, the last 2 decades now, almost, a bit less, I think, but like 15 years, maybe a bit more. And my background is more from, like initially from design, but then I shifted, and early 2000s, I completely changed my career path into software development. And since then, I've been doing different things, like mainly Ruby development. As a freelancer, I founded an agency back in the days, and also in Linux administration, I was involved in a business there. So different things. From early on, I think I was pretty much involved in open source. First, mainly as a user, and then starting to contribute things in different projects. Then also becoming a co-maintainer, and being involved on a daily basis, and have seen, I think, different communities, how they behave, how the different cultures in different projects, how things work or not work, how things are tied together, and so on. So I think I've got some experience there in this area, and I've been in Cardano since, I think, 2018 it started for me, but then really got into the community later in 2020, 2021. I started a pool, been working on Cardano Cube for the past 6 months, did some replatforming there, and now maintaining that, which is not open source, unfortunately. Maybe that can change one day. And yeah, different things. I've built a calendar for Cardano, so like multiple things on Cardano. I think I'm part of the community and happy to serve for the community in the open source space.
Well, thanks, Robin. I'll give you a little shout out there, as you mentioned Cardano Cube. As you had mentioned to me as well, that you're planning to kind of participate in some of the committee stuff, regardless of whether or not you're elected for a seat. We do actually have an open source libraries working group that's just started.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can navigate to that open source committee section in the Discord, you can find where that thread is for that particular working group. think they're trying to set up a meeting next week there as well. So we'll be happy to have some of your insight there as to how we can continue to build that out.
Absolutely, it got my interest already. I saw it, and I'm curious to see what's going on.
Well, I guess we'll hand it over to Faizan, and then we'll see if we have any questions.
Yeah. Hello, guys. Hello, everyone. My name is Faizan Sheikh. I am a Cardano enthusiastic and a passionate blockchain developer. And my main focus is into the smart contract development, where I gain a solid understanding of decentralized system and about the governance part of the things. Yeah, I'm passionate about building the secure, innovative solutions and scalable solutions that make the real difference in the real world. I'm dedicated to working with the community members and understanding the goals that meet high standards. With my background within the blockchain, specifically to the Haskell and Plutus, I bring the technical skills to contribute in a meaningful way. I have also experience with the different DeFis and DEX I have worked on, and understand how the working goes on, and about the cultures and about the different mindsets about the peoples. And I'm looking forward to bring fresh ideas to the committee and making sure every voice is heard in the community. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much there, Faizan. I will open this up to any questions we may have from the community. And if we don't have anything coming that way, then I'll throw something out here for us. No need to raise a hand or anything. If you got a question, just feel free to unmute and go ahead and speak.
All right. Hello, everyone. So I'm curious as to, and I know it's hard to say, but and please try to give as correct answer as possible. But how much time do you think you can put into this effort on like a weekly or monthly basis?
All right, I'll go first. I guess between 1 and 2 hours a week.
I think it's a very good question that is important to answer, and I feel like I need to think about it, and I think I'll join Moritz on that. Like maybe a tiny bit more is possible for me, but I think like maybe 3-4 hours a week should be possible.
Yeah, according to me, I can give around 3 to 4 hours a week. And also, I have been contributing to the Cardano spot, so I can manage my time according to this also.
I've got a question. As a decision-making group, groups often disagree. Do you have any experience dealing with conflict and managing disagreements within a group? Have you got any examples you could talk about, and maybe respond in the same order as you guys presented? So, you're muted, Moritz.
Now it works again. No idea why that didn't work. So I'm part of various committees in the Haskell ecosystem space, so including Haskell org and the steering committee. And of course, you have conflicts and disagreements coming up. What mostly worked so far, but that might also be part of truth through the selection of these groups, is that people explain their viewpoints and try to find some commonalities, and then we see if these commonalities work, and ultimately there's sometimes someone who does the tie breaking if nothing works at all. And ultimately we are people, and it seems to so far have mostly been either a lack of understanding each other that can then be solved through talking. Sometimes you also need to talk to someone in private, personal, take a time out, break out with someone and just try to discuss it and then see if that works. If if you're ending in like unresolved issues, which has happened very rarely, they might sometimes get shelved for the next meeting. But yeah, I don't want to make any prescriptions how this has to be done here. There might be other better solution to this. This is just my experience from, you could say, more academic committees.
Robin, that's to you.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's a good question as well. Yeah, in the end, it's all people, and we need to come together and talk. So we, wherever we meet, we try to solve conflicts by trying to be honest to each other and respect each other. I think that's the main part here, to not get too emotional. But if things heat up, and of course that can happen, I think I'm a person. My character is I tend not to like get into a fight mode on this type of conversations with people on a professional space, but try to keep it on a level where you can respectfully discuss with each other. And if that doesn't work, and if your partner that you're talking to is not willing to get on that level, it's maybe better to try it another day and see how that goes. But yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that better.
No, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah. When dealing with the conflicts, because many different people are having different mindsets, and they are thinking about different situations, and they want to prove their points correct someone's, and the conflict there increases. So my understanding is that when the people are getting conflicted with each other, I will be prefer to keep my mouth silent, because when the hits go up, the words hurts more. I think that, because when we are in the conflict situation, we don't know what we are saying, and that can make the situation more worse. So I prefer to wait for some time, like for to get the people hit down, and after that I can put my point on, and they will be good to understand what I am saying, and they will be try to understand what is the main situation and what we are discussing on.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Christian.
I got a ringer of a question. Depending on where you are from, it can be contentious. But as we know, Cardano is like 80% developers, 20% business, and then everyone's an anarchist, is what I call it, for all the disruptive factors that we bring with Web3. And there's the concept of essentially, well, how did I word it in yesterday's session? The question I'm trying to get to is, how do you define merit in Cardano? Because everyone has a different viewpoint on that, right? And what constitutes merit is kind of the key question I'm coming to in y'all's mind. You know, feel free to take a second.
We're talking about merit of Cardano, right?
Yeah, or merit-based contribution, merit. It can take any facet you'd like it to. Because some people are like, anybody should be able to. Merit isn't just tied to putting code and interacting on GitHub. Merit could also be the community management aspects of open source, or different things to different people. Just trying to get where y'all's stance on it is.
I can try. I'm not sure if I completely understand the question, but I try answer. And then we see if that makes sense.
Well, would it help for me to give one quick context that might
Yeah,
help?
please. Sure, please.
So one thing we're doing with the developer advocates right now on the committee is trying to institute a contribution ladder. And that's where this question comes in right here. Is as you're trying to go from new contributor to defining what is a core maintainer, what constitutes merit. So that's kind of a little context for that. Does that help?
Yeah, I think that helps quite a lot actually, because this relates more to code, right? And I think here in the sense of climbing that ladder, you can actually look at people's contributions and like facts of like what have they done in the past, what is the experience of these people, so you can, I think, understand what if you have a defined system of like where's the crossing point from the step to the next, if it makes sense to push this this user up to the next level, kind of, if that makes sense.
I guess I have a slightly different take than Robin on this. So to me, the technical part of contributing to a project and becoming a contributor is one side of the coin. And the other to me is also being someone who's very clear in communicating and being able to bring on new people and communicate about projects to new people to help them on board and do that. So there's a bit of a twist to me between people who are like really technically excellent, but are not that great at actually community interaction. So, and then you have people who are like very good at explaining concepts, but might not be actually that much of actually writing code. And I think both sides do have important impact on projects. Because the one side has this technical background where they might be very, very excellent in knowing the details in and out of the project. And the other side is actually the ones who can give someone a high-level overview and make someone understand how it works, and also have the soft skills to discuss with people. I think it spans a fairly wide range. I'm just not sure if I'm kind of deviating from what Christian wanted. I must admit, maybe it's also my English being my second language, that the question is not so clear to me.
It's open-ended, just to provide more context there, because it can be a political question. It can be, how do you judge someone to evaluate maintainership? How do you evaluate a project and its fit into the ecosystem, stuff like that. So it's however you want to answer to it. I just know it's a widely debated subject, so it goes everywhere. Faizan, I didn't know if you had a chance to answer that as well, if you had an answer.
Yep. I think, yeah, I agree with the Moritz. And also, the thing is, the question is not very clear to me, but what Moritz said, I also understand that, because when looking at the persons and getting up into the community, like suppose he is a technical person, then we have to keep a more care about what expertise he's bringing into the committee. And the other side is like the non-technical part of the thing. Means having a technical background is not that much, it is important, but also having a different type of mindset, how to community works and how to communicate with other peoples can also be as much as important. So yep, I think yeah, understanding the people's mindset will be much more helpful to gather more peoples in the community.
I think I'll answer the question. Yeah.
And there's one more thing which I observed in a few open source projects that I would like to just bring up because I think it fits kind of in the context, and that is what I sometimes see is that open source projects lack this kind of like educator folks, which I rather see a lot more in open source projects that would take care of like writing documentation in a more technical role, writing tutorials, making sure that it's easy to understand what the project does. Like, why does this project exist? What problems does it solve? And then on a high level, how does it solve these problems? So really, someone who onboards new users to projects, and I think lots of open source projects lack in that quite a bit because they're often driven by technical folks, not so much by people who care a lot about the end user's use of project.
Cool. Thank you all for answering. Next question, because it's going to be something that comes up, is related to Cardano. The committee already put together strategy based on community concerns, but what do you see as problems in Cardano in the open source world, and what's your ideas to help address some of those? I argue that Cardano's as open source as we have code on GitHub, and we've been making progress from there to make it more efficient. But what do you see, and how would you interact to help strategize that?
I kind of repeat what I just said. I think we need more people helping with the documentation and tutorialization of the code we have.
Yep. As I know, as I live in India, so I saw that in India there is not much awareness about the Cardano blockchain because people are only knowing about the Bitcoin and Ethereum, and because of that, the awareness of the Cardano is very much less. And the people here, the developers here, the blockchain developers are very much knowledgeable that can be contributing to the Cardano blockchain. But the thing is that the awareness is very low in India. So to bring people, the first thing I would tell is to create the awareness in different countries where the mindset of the people in the development is much more higher. And they can be onboarded on the Cardano so that the development can also be boosted, and other things like documentation and tutorials can also be made. And if you saw some tutorials like Haskell or Plutus on the YouTube, they are only limited, only of limited time. Only of limited knowledge. There is not much multiple videos that the creators are making on it. So creating videos on different technologies like Plutus, Haskell in different languages or native languages would also help people to onboard on the Cardano, and they can contributing on it.
Okay. Cool. Robin?
Yeah, I think a lot has been said already. That makes sense to me. But let me say that maybe I think in the community is big, and there's a lot of people with different skills, different from different contexts, different countries, different cultures, and everything. And I think we can gain from each and everyone in the end. Everyone has something to contribute. Of course, not to every project. And all the time, but there's a lot of great minds that might not be coders, and they can potentially help with anything that is needed in the different projects out there. And I think, yeah, what is important is to identify the different projects needs and see what is lacking, like documentation, for example, I think is a big one, as said before. So I think there's probably a lot of people that are currently not contributing, but they potentially could and be onboarded into such a role if they get a hand. And maybe this is something we can help with.
Well, and so this will be my last question. I'll hand it back to other people because I can ask a million questions. But connected to that, this question was a preview to the next one, which is Intersect's going to be going through a budget process where there's buckets allocated from the whole governance of Chang and whatnot. the open source committee will have some budget assigned to it to address open source concerns. So related to those conversations, how do you see the divestment of those funds to further enhance things? So, or what suggestions would you bring?
So I guess I'll go first. It kind of depends on each specific project, but you might need some help with, like, I don't know, you might need a server somewhere to host some documentation or whatnot, and just use DocuSource on GitHub or whatever solution. So there might be ideas that come up how to do the hosting for documentation or something else. Then this is a lot harder with globally spanning open source projects. It does help if members of communities come together at some point. So you could have a meetup somewhere locally, which I don't know if these funds would be subject to or not. And again, for the documentation side, you might need to get some assistance with, like, graphics if that's needed. And that all is kind of based on having someone bootstrap that to a certain degree. And then once you have basically this bootstrap, which kind of proves that this is motivated enough, you could start dispersing funds. I think there's a big risk in open source work that someone comes along, has an idea, and then talks about it, but nothing really happens. So I usually want to see at least some concrete work towards any such goal be done before committing to any form of additional funding.
Yeah, maybe adding to that, because you mentioned documentation specifically. I think in general, more in general, infrastructure is something that could be funded or applied for funds to see, not to see, but yeah, depending on the project. I mean, that's as you said, Moritz. It highly depends on the project, what it is. But that could be something that I see right now. And another thing, I don't know, something like bounties to increase engagement and drive people into the project. Starting small on an easy level for beginners to start into the project, to dive into it. Just an idea. I would need to think about it more, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, right. And also, I would like to add a point about the open source thing and the documentation and the budget allocation. As there is always a risk of open sourcing means onboarding people and what they are speaking about and giving them the bounties about it. So further, before giving them the bounties, and we have to just do the cross-checking of it, means how the expertise they are, what expertise they are bringing, and what workshops or documentation they will be doing. So after, we always have to take a bet on them, so that as a background check of them, we will be getting a surety that the thing they are promising about, and they will be doing that 100%ly and bringing much more candidates participation on the Cardano. So yep, for everything we have to create a budget, like the workshops, the contribution, the documentation, and so on.
Okay. I'll hand my time over to whoever else has a question.
Boaz, I appreciate you joining us. Did you have any questions for our open source committee candidates? If nothing there, or from the other community members here, I would ask for the candidates here, and maybe this has touched on some of the other conversation, but I think it's pretty widespread. With Intersec's assistance as far as or oversight, if you will, on the development of Cardano moving forward, are there any gaps that you see as far as the open source development? Anything that you would, let's say, highlight or bring to the table as something most important for us to start focusing on or looking at as we go into 25?
Maybe some kind of overview of what we have out there, like what projects do we have, for people to see a list and they actually understand what kind of projects they could join, or even if it's just the understanding of the amount of different projects. I think right now it's very widespread. It's very distributed and hard to find. So if you don't really know what you're looking for, it's hard to navigate. I think helping with this could be beneficial.
I think adding to that, having a clear synopsis for each project, detailing what it is, why we care about it, and a very high level how it works overview is also quite helpful to assist people looking at the project, what it is, especially if you have projects that do not have descriptive names, but just like some name that someone thought was either interesting or comes from, I don't know, some cultural book, whatever background, and then you're like, okay, whatever this means, I have no idea what I'm looking at. So what is it? Why do we care, and how does it work? Are usually questions I often ask about projects I have no idea, and then either try to fill them out myself, or ideally they are actually detailed that way in the README.
I think when a new user joins the Intersect Discord group, they are getting some they are getting no idea from where to start, and from whom do we can connect with, and in which group or working group we can contribute. So I think we can create some group or the link on a other thread in the Discord, so that the new members who are joining the Discords in the Intersect, so they will get an idea and the links where they can go through and read, and what all expertise they bring and contribution to the working group, because there is much more wide range in the Discord, so they are getting confused to whom to contact and like that.
And clear instructions how to contribute, right? Because often you have READMEs that just end or are just very short. Sometimes you have very extensive READMEs, and some are still lacking how to contribute to the project.
So that might be a good question, because some of what we're talking about, it does vary a little bit outside or mostly outside of the open source committee's remit here. So things like the Discord, we have our community team that works on that. Things like the READMEs, the technical steering committee is going to have more oversight or say on what goes into or what might change or edit those. It's definitely something that we can provide a suggestion for, but there's a different committee that would overall make that decision. So what I'm curious about, the question here is what levels of experience do you have, and maybe more so than has been expanded previously, what level of experience do you have working with other groups or working with those people that you don't maybe specifically know right off the bat?
Isn't that what happens with every open source project you join?
It can be. Others would have the idea that people stick together in this environment. So, and I'm not saying that that's the most popular idea, but realistically, what I guess this question is targeting is what's your process or procedure to reach out to somebody and build that trust right away to say, hey, I have this opinion. Here's why you should trust this opinion before you've even had the conversation that you're aiming to have.
Wait, as a new contributor, or as someone who maintains the project?
So the question is geared to yourself, as imagining that you're sitting on a seat on the open source committee. What, other than you having a seat, right? What tactics are you going to use to contact another somebody else who sits on a different committee? Or how are you going to approach a community member who could be a new contributor or a trusted committer or anything of the like?
Well, so for other committees, I would hope there are recordings, so you can basically take recordings and meeting notes, and based off of that, see what interesting points there are to discuss with someone else, and then basically try to shoot them an email or a message and see if something comes back. If none of this works, you might know someone in the same committee where you can try to ask him, hey, can you get the contact to someone else, to me? That might work, but I mean, there's always the chance that someone just does not want to talk to you. Just accept the fact of life. Now, someone who might contribute, I would assume that these people mostly end up in the issue trackers or pull requests of existing projects. So based on a somewhat regular triage cycle, you should see these people pop up. And then if you see them being engaged, you can try to like foster this by your own engagement with them, trying to move this into some direction. Again, experience I had from other projects is just trying to pick people off of, I don't know, Discord and other chats might not be that helpful. People like to often talk a lot, but becoming a contributor to me means I want to see people actually doing some work initially to show that there's more than just pushing lots of ideas.
I'm not 100% sure if I understand what you're after. What I believe to understand is there's different people to reach out to. So there's the repository maintainer, for example. Maybe there's something I want to discuss with him because or her, because there's something that we've been discussing internally, or not internally, but publicly, maybe in the committee here, and we would like to see if this finds if people find that attractive and appealing to maybe apply on their repositories for example, the contribution letter that you were talking about. So reaching out to those people, I would maybe even start a discussion on their GitHub repository in the form of an issue or a discussion board if they have that open. So that would be one way for that. And if it's to find contributors or contributing people, to reach out to them, maybe the project has some community somewhere that is not on GitHub. So could be in Discord, for example. Yeah, that is something, of course, you can start discussions there and try and get people engaging with the repository then on GitHub. But I think that's, yeah, as Moritz said, maybe you catch someone there, but I think that's a bit harder. I think if you have them on GitHub already, that's probably much easier to interact and see this work out.
Yeah, according to me, I have experience with this. I have gone through this situation where I was getting into some smart contract writing, and I was not able to understand what the thing is. But before going to someone and ask them about the help and making them trust on us. So what I thought was is to understand what things I'm going to. Suppose there's some smart contract and I'm writing on the Plutus. So I should understand what is the Plutus is and what all things the Plutus bring, and I have to show what I have done on the Plutus, because just going to a person and asking them for help without any background knowledge of a specific thing is, I think, will not much of use, and the front person will also not take interest in it. So the first thing is to have the information about what we are asking and an idea about it, and also show some contribution and what all work we have done on it. And if we are not able to find some person in connected way, then I would prefer to go on their official website and connect them. And if not, then then the repository of the GitHub, and open a discussion about them. And while connecting with a person, I will make sure that it would be precise, and I will send the link what I have worked on and about my contribution in it, and just ask the simple question about asking help for this specific thing and like that.
Well, definitely thank you for the responses. And Colin, we appreciate you joining. Did you have any questions for any of the open source committee candidates?
Yeah, I just want to kind of listen and get in the feel for what's going on and see what you guys are up to and hear kind of basic intros, and then I'll get into that, if that's all right.
Sure. So since we do have a new participant, do you want to give just another brief intro here?
All right, I'll go again as as the first one, I guess. All right, I'm Moritz. I work at IOG as developer experience head, and also in the platform engineering group now. And I have probably at least a decade of experience contributing to open source projects, working in open source committees, mostly on the Haskell side. So. But yeah, you'll find me a lot if you just Google for me. So I'm not trying to make anything up.
Okay, if we continue the line as before, then it would be me. I'm Robin, and I'm software engineer since, I don't know, 2005, I think. And I've been in open source since I don't know, contributing a bit later. So I guess maybe 2010 it started. Yeah, so I've been working on several Cardano projects. For example, Cardano Cube and Cardano Calendar. So that's different things I'm doing in the community there, as well as a pool. And yeah, I think that's me. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Hi guys, I'm Faizan Sheikh. I'm also a software developer and a blockchain developer, and my more focus is on the Haskell side and the smart contract writing of things. And now I'm doing my mastery in the Icon smart contract, and I have experience with the different DEX and DeFi projects. And also I am a core contributor in the Cardano spots, where I post the things what all going on the Cardano blockchain and what all the new updates. And yep, that's about me. That's not intro.
Thanks, Jen.
I guess what I would ask would be so a lot of this is going to work off of kind of what the product committee sets up, right? You guys are going to be kind of setting up open source projects, but there's going to be kind of a vision that the community puts together. And how do you guys see the open source committee working with, the other committees and working with the core committee, for example? It's kind of going to be a generally a team effort in that space. I mean, you guys are going to be different things in the core committee, but how do you guys see that working together as a process going forward.
Just to provide context to the open source committee mostly dictates how development happens from that open source perspective, just to help.
So, given other committees' needs and inputs, I think this would then mostly be towards the open source committee finding policies to put in place to facilitate open source development, with the goal of aligning the same principles and ideas that other committees have put or agreed on, or that basically come from the product direction.
And I guess I would, you know, as the open source committee, like, would you focus on B2B projects, like setting up things that businesses can use, or would you focus, like, what is kind of the general direction that you see for the Cardano blockchain in general going forward? Do we need, what kind of projects do we need to build that will attract more users? What kind of tools do you guys think need to be built? Like a general direction when you're working with, you know, what direction the core, the product committee is going, like, what kind of tools do you guys see that you think the open source committee needs to focus on?
Should I go again? Or Robin, do you want, or Faizan? Otherwise, I'm going to be talking here, and I'm not sure that's the best.
I can try. Yeah, I think this open source committee is not really for setting up preferences or dictating what kind of projects we need, right? That's more. I think something Moritz said like a couple of minutes ago. It's more, or Christian, maybe it was you, aligning ideas and giving advice and suggestions on how processes work or could work, and try to get things under one roof in the end, like not like completely have everything like in the wild, but get some structures out and have people want them to apply to their own processes.
Yep, right. And yeah, along with this, I think the Project Catalyst is a good place from where the projects for the onboarding new transaction and the people's on the Cardano is a good place where people can give their ideas. And I think most of them are the good projects they are building on. And for example, you can say about NMKR, that is making much more contribution on the Cardano blockchain, as well as the MLabs. So there are multiple projects that will be good to keep an eye on. So that will be bring much more contribution on the Cardano blockchain and participation in it.
So maybe something I'd like to add, and that is looking at the open source committee as part of Intersect, and Intersect basically being, well, to some degree, the facilitator. I think we have lots of great people in the community that build end user applications. I think the big need is providing the proper substrate to build these applications on. So, and that is what I think what Intersect is focusing on right now. And if we keep that focus, I think that would mean that the open source committee also mostly deals with the open source project of Intersect and policies for those, and that would mean it's mostly substrate for other consumers. That would then basically be other businesses, or, well, technically it's always a business if you try to build something for the end user, or if you basically try to bridge something. So I guess to answer your question a bit more directly, Colin, that would be my answer to that.
All right, as we're getting close down to the end here, more than happy to take another question or any other questions. But if there's anything else that you all wanted to put out here, get just a few more minutes and then we'll wrap this up. And Colin, for reference there, we do have 2 other sessions, one that occurred yesterday and one that occurred last week, both of which are up or will be up on YouTube. Everything is up there today. The first one is already up. The second one is being loaded currently.
I got one last question. So even though it's not directly within the committee's remit, it's the supporting base layer with open source development. But how would you help for the commercial adoption of Cardano with open source development?
All right, I'll go first. It's late anyway, at least for me. So for the commercial adoption of Cardano, I think one of the things we could try to focus on is the open source committee, even though, as Christian said, it's not really in the remit. I guess it's more in the product remit, but is making the, as I mentioned before, substrate components as easily accessible and easily documented as possible, and providing the potentially, if there are resources for it, support for these, as in, where you actually can ask people for concrete support about these open source components and have someone who actually tries to help you with a help desk kind of interface.
Yep. I think for commercial adoption, I think it would be much more easier from the user perspective, that the user GUI and the understanding of what the product about is on the blockchain much more easier and easily accessible. And for the simpler way, how other things are working on the background of the things, and how the blockchain can bring much more advantage to the business and anything like that. Yeah.
I think I'll skip this one. I don't have good ideas right now. Sorry.
Oh, I was on mute. No worries. I guess we can give it up to any final remarks that y'all would like to leave, since we got 2 minutes.
All right. Well, if nothing else, I definitely do want to thank our candidates for showing up here today. Thank you to the community for showing up to ask some questions here as well. Do want to open this up as well for any feedback that you all may have as far as how the open source office here at Intersect has run this pre-vote election, anywhere from the candidate process to socializations to even these intro sessions here. Feel free to forward that along to myself at text-oso on Discord via DM or in the open source channel, or also directly via email oso@intersectmbo.org. But thanks once again, everyone, and have a good one.